Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great guest. I love bringing you different guests with different viewpoints. I tell you what, we're early in second quarter, and of course, in some areas, it's getting warmer and beautiful, and it's time for baseball or softball and all these seasons in sports. And let's hope in a lot of places we're going to be able to get back to having that active lifestyle again. And today's guest is going to help us with that. Jason Holzer. He grew up in Taos, Missouri, and Jason was raised in a small town with a loving family that gave him every chance to succeed. His parents were supportive and provided everything this 17-year-old could ever want. That is until his life changed forever on May 8th, 2003. When his dad unexpectedly passed away by suicide, leaving him, his mother, and two younger sisters behind. Through hard work, dedication, and a strong faith in God, he is now a certified teacher and a thought coach, accomplished basketball coach, and an elite skills trainer, Amazon best-selling author, and post-traumatic growth storyteller, and the co-founder of 4D Athletes. Jason, it is so great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Gary, hey, it's great to be here with another fellow Jeff City guy. So it's always great to talk to people where I grew up at. So thank you for having me today.
And Jason, I connected on LinkedIn, did not know he was from this area. And then we find the connection. So it just shows you there's so many ways to build relationships with people. Jason, I think the best place to start, and we shared a little bit in the bio, but that's not just the only thing of who you are. Give me as a little bit of your story and kind of your growth over the years to where you're at today.
Yeah, I mean, I can start whenever I was a kid. You know, I love sports ever since I can remember. I mean, I just playing them, going to games, watching it on TV. I was a kid, 7, 8 years old, that watched the same Sports Center like 10 times in a row. And my mom was like, or not, maybe not 10, but like 3. She's like, haven't you already seen that? Like, yeah, but that catch was awesome, Mom. And back then you didn't have YouTube. So yeah, you had to wait for the next hour to watch it again, you know, and playing baseball, playing basketball, you know, playing in the neighborhood, that was something that was always something I just connected with, you know, and it was, I had a great childhood because of that, you know, a lot of fun on the field and on the court. So that's a lot of like my passion and how I become a teacher, a PE teacher and a basketball coach, because that, you know, there's like, you know, 1.1% of the 1% go on to actually get paid to play sports. And so I was obviously the 99% that didn't. So I was like, how can I still stay involved in sports? And coaching kind of became the thing that I love to do. And so 11 years later, here I am still doing that. And after college.
Well, and that's the thing is, as we really find out some of our passions allows us to really move forward and decide to become some of our profession. But along with that, we find that some of that passion that we find that's in sports, we find there's opportunities. And I'd really like you to share, if you would, because as I told you, I've done some research on the 4D athletes, and I really love what you're doing there. And share with our listeners what your concept is behind 4D athletes and why did you get it started?
Yeah, well, you know, like you mentioned in my bio, suicide has been a real issue in our society, and it affected my family personally, losing my dad. And the truth of the matter is that's the second leading cause of death between 10 to 34-year-olds right now. And so what are we not doing that could be done on a bigger scale? And so we saw sports as an opportunity to teach life skills, to teach like about your mind, to teach about, you know, how to set worthy and inspiring goals, to have your own definition of success, because there's so many things that you can teach in sports that also apply to life. Like sports is like you may know how to play the game, but you don't know how it's going to play out. Right. Because it's that authenticity, that real time, like you just do your best. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed. And when you fail, if you get feedback from it and you learn from it, then that's a win as well. And so, you know, we see it as an opportunity to truly teach what the skills that are going to be significant in all areas of life, not just the physical skills.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, because too often, though, we're worried about, I hear it all the time, this is way for my son or daughter to get a scholarship, to
Mm.
move on. And, the challenge we have is, as parents, it's tough to sit on the sideline because, of course, we always want the best for our children. But what's some tips that you would share with parents that would help them to be able to understand that, how they can be a better parent and really end up helping their children grow and really be able to achieve the success overall in life?
But yeah, and I'll give you another stat here, Gary. Like by 13 or 14, 70% of kids are quitting a particular sport. Like that's really young to give up on something, in my opinion. And so for me, it's like, what experience are we creating for our kids? Are we creating an experience where they're like, hey, did you have fun? Did you learn something new? Those are the things like that. And a lot of times kids will say the car ride home was the worst part of playing sports because, you're like, parents think like, hey, I'm coaching a little bit more after the game. And the reality is kids exhausted. They just got done playing for an hour and 15 minutes. They have a coach that's helping them. Ask them what they had fun with. Ask them what they enjoyed. Ask them about, how they feel playing, those kind of things. And sometimes maybe you don't say anything, and just if it was a tough game, they lost, maybe it's like a last second buzzer beater or a walk off or whatever, like sometimes just letting them kind of have their own space and not going into it, is the best thing. And maybe bring it up 24 hours or don't bring it up at all, and so I think allowing your kid to have their own experience with it and not trying to have their kids' experience be your experience as well. And
Mm.
just be that supportive one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and be that supportive parent. I wished I could say I learned that early on, but I did not. But I did in high school with my child, and I really pulled back how I approached that. And after a football game or whatever sport he was playing, I learned, and I picked this up somewhere. I don't know where, Jason, but I would just say, I really enjoyed watching you play tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And it made a difference, and didn't try to teach, didn't try to coach and do some of those things that's there. But I always thought it was important, like you said, is giving them a few life lessons. Before he'd go out on the field, I didn't tell him how to play, but I had three things we always talked about. I said, go out and have fun, focus, and hustle. That's why you're playing a sport. And then after the game, it was like, did you have fun? Where do you think some of your good focus was? Did you hustle and stuff on that side? And didn't always have to ask him a question, but it became a point when I was coaching. I shared that with my players because that was the three things I wanted every time. If we lost the game, okay. But if we did those three things, then we worked hard and we was able to make it forward. Jason.
Yeah. And can I go back real quick? With the scholarship thing, parents don't realize that only about 12 to 15% of scholarship money is athletic. 80 to 85% is academic. So, you're investing a lot of money into something that doesn't have a return on investment or very highly likely. And only about 6% of high school athletes go on to play college sports, and 3% go on to play Division I. So again, the numbers are like, and the way that colleges work at it, they might have a kid that's a super elite athlete, but they're looking for academic kids that are good, where they can combine that academic and athletic money as well. So just wanted to raise that awareness as well. And like the numbers don't always add up, like thinking like, hey, just because my kid's in a club sport all year long, they're going to get a scholarship. That's a myth that needs to be, debunked.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly that one. Cause when I hear that one, I have a hard time because I want to say, I'm not saying don't have them play sports, cause I believe in that, but you don't have to travel all the time and all over the country to get them that special scholarship. Instead, travel a little bit, but then save that other part of that money that you did, put it in an education IRA, and you'll have your scholarship for them that you saved from less travel that's there. And sports is what you said. And that's what we've got to get back to. Sports is built around having fun, the enjoyment of it. So they're not dropping out at age 13 and 14. I think you said 70% are quitting at that time. We don't want that. That's when you want them to
peak. Too many.
And there's too many early injuries that we're seeing too, because we're stressing the kids' bodies because it's now 12 months out of the year that they're doing something. And I just read a book on solitude, and it talks about lead yourself first. All of our great leaders knew how to find space for themselves. Well, for a little kid, what is that? it's playing in the backyard, acting like you're going to be, I'll show my age here, Lou Brock or Keith Hernandez or somebody like that from the Cardinals was mine. I'm sure you have different ones that was your heroes. And in some of that is giving them that space to just have that time.
Yeah, I mean, Ozzie Smith was my guy, the Wizard growing up, and I loved watching him and him play, doing his backflips, you name it, as a kid growing up. Ray Langford, the '90s, Mark McGuire, Albert Pujols, those guys, and you look at their background, they did multiple things as kids. They didn't just stick to one thing, and it's giving your kids breaks. Like, I think it's important to give them space to just be a kid. I'm a K through 4 PE teacher. And some kids, they just don't know how to play. Like, they're so focused on the rules, like soccer players. Like, oh, he did a handball. I'm like, it's PE class. Like, some of these kids don't play soccer. Like, let's kind of chill a little bit here, and let's just learn to have fun. Like, it's amazing how many kids are like at 6 and 7 are so like rule specific, and you're like, they're not learning how to play. Just play. I mean, you can focus on rules sometimes, yeah, but other times, like, just go out there and let things be kind of more free.
Yeah, exactly. Well, share with them as far as, as parents, we've talked about a few ways that they need to give them that space and stuff, but share with us behind the concept of why you created 4D athletes and kind of what that is, and go ahead and share what it is to them so they understand that there's some tools out there. Because I think for some of us, what we need to understand there's tools available to us. And that's what I was really impressed on your website. You're giving it to people to help them understand that it's not just about learning the sport. It's about learning about sports and life and skills that you get out of it.
Yeah, that's basically why we created it, is like, how can we teach life skills in like the way we teach the physical skills? You don't become a great basketball shooter by shooting 100,000 shots a day, right? But you do it by, maybe you make 100 shots a day or 150 shots a day, you name it. And you do that over time. And then there's a compound interest effect. You get a little bit better every day. And so we were like, well, what if we broke down life skills and did it in a very simple, easy to understand way, easily digestible way. And we did it in an online course. So it's our content it's online in digital content, online courses. And then we also were working on a mentorship program too, like to help parents and coaches and athletes understand, like, what is it that we want to get out of sports? After you put the glove down, the basketball, like, what are these skills that are going to help you in all areas of life become a better coworker, spouse, parent, friend, you name it. Like, and that's our why, is trying to create a village mentality where parents and coaches are allies, helping mold and develop young to 8 to 18-year-olds into great adults when they become and start doing their own thing. And our mission is to transform 100 million lives by 2030. So we're thinking big, but we know, but we're starting small. So, but we have like a one person at a time mentality at the same time.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, because I think it's important people know there are resources available. And let's kind of transition in, Jason. You've had kind of that post-traumatic challenges, and how do you overcome that? What can you share with our audience that really you can have post-traumatic growth, not allowing something to define you that happens, instead allowing you to define what life is?
Yeah, after I lost my dad to suicide, there was a lot of like things that I didn't understand on why they happened. Like, first of all, why did it happen in the first place? What could I have done differently? And I was in a tough place. Like, it was hard for me to move forward, but I had great people in my life, like the Strasser family, like we both know, that were very supportive. Like my family, they were very communicative. They were checking in on me. And, I had people in my life that just listened when I needed it. They didn't try to tell me what to do. They didn't try to say, hey, all will be better. Like, the sympathetic, like, oh, hey, it'll be okay. You'll get better. Like, it'll pass. And I'm like, well, it's still 18 years later, and I still have tough days thinking about, wishing he would be here with my kids, my wife, and that kind of thing. What would it be like if he was around? But for me, it came to a point, like, I have a choice. I can let this deter me, or I can define it. I can acknowledge it, I can face it, and turn it somehow into a positive over time. Now, it's taken 15 years, but I found out, like, hey, I always ask myself the question, why does everything work in my favor? Whether I like it or not, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, I feel like God is always trying to lead us to who we're supposed to become. And 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 so you can either use what's happened in your life to become a victim of it, or you can become a thriver of it and work through it, take the tough route, but it's going to be easier in the long run. Or you can take the easy route and make it tougher in the long run. And again, it's what we end up choosing every day that defines us.
Yeah, I love how you use the word choice, because that fits with us so much. Is, we're going to choose that this is bad, or we can choose that it's good. And I understand in a traumatic situation, it takes time to be able to discover that, but you have to be willing to ask yourself that question. But think about for ourselves, there's today somebody's listening and they had an argument with their spouse before they left for work. Well, you can choose to let that dwell and you come home tonight and not say anything. Or maybe if you're the one, maybe you apologize and it can change the choice of how the evening will go. And that becomes the real key, is when we realize that really our attitude is dictated by us, not someone else. The old Stephen Covey, be proactive, choose your response. You get stimulus. We've got to choose our response. But what's in between that? He calls it space. Stimulus. Once you get the stimulus, you've got to have yourself space to be able to choose the direction you want to go. Because if we just respond emotionally, of course, that becomes a real challenge for us. When you think about this, and I know it's a hard word to define, and to me, everyone has a different definition. But when I say, what is the definition of a success for you? What would you tell me?
John Wooden, I like John Wooden's definition. He said success is giving the best effort of what you're capable of every single day. And then another guy named Earl Nightingale said success is the progression of a worthy ideal, meaning like there's a process. Everything is a process. And if you enjoy the journey or find joy in the journey, the outcome will be, a byproduct, right? It's like, man, I had to go through this to get to that. And that was like, what did I learn through that? Because, at the end of the day, like you're born, and then eventually something that we're going to pass on, and everything in between that is just a journey. So, I mean, like these outcomes that we shoot for, whether in sports or in business success, like these benchmarks we think we have to get to, those are great. And those are, that's something we should strive for. But the real excitement is like the process in getting there. Because like let's take baseball, for example. Cardinals won the World Series in 2011, 2006. A lot of those guys will talk about the path they took to get there, because the celebration in itself, it lasts like, a moment or a day, maybe a week, and then you got to move on to what's next. Like this doesn't hang out forever, And so I think that's the journey is where the joy is. And so that's kind of myself is what I'm learning too, is like, what's great about being present today, and how can I learn from this journey and then celebrate the outcome, but then knowing that, hey, there's always something next. There's always a way to make things better, and finding out what that is kind of makes it fun, and not really knowing how, but that's also part of the fun as well, is like, I wonder how that's going to play out. That'd be really interesting to see how that works, so yeah, that's kind of what I think is as far as just enjoying the journey.
Yeah, I love how you talked about that, because that's the key, is enjoying the journey. And there's ups and downs, and there's struggles, and there's good things that come with that. And we all went through COVID last year and still dealing with some issues of COVID. But the thing is what is that journey? What has it taught us? Hopefully one thing it taught us, that we do need some more space and some time, that we don't have to be busy 24/7 all the time. I heard someone say before, that dash, whenever you're born, and that dash in between, what do you want to make that dash? Because, we always know the day we were born, and we know the day we die, but what's that in between, that journey that you're talking about? That it makes us the difference there. Now you had in your bio, and I'm just curious because I don't know what this is. And it says you're a thought coach.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me that concept.
So, we have about 70,000 thoughts a day, right? And then 90% of those thoughts are from previously before. And a negative thought is 40 to 70 times more powerful than a positive thought.
Yeah.
So, this is like, for me, it resonated with me because I talked with a lady that created it. And she was like, it's all about asking yourself the right questions and finding the origin of the thoughts going on in your head. Because most of the times the thoughts we're thinking aren't our own original thoughts. There's something that somebody said to us. We just believed it, and boom, now it's swirling around. Like, for example, a one is like, I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy. Like, well, who said that? Oh, that was my classmate that was having a hard day, said, oh, you're stupid. And then you just tend to believe it. And then it sticks with you because you never challenged it. And so the first question I'll tell people to ask is like, well, says who? Oh, that was them. That was their opinion. Do you want to think that? No. Okay. Then how can we replace it? And then so we go into of like release and replace. Let that thought go. Don't get emotionally involved in it, and replace it with something that would like, oh, I'm an amazing person. I'm confident. I can do it. And then you change the feeling. You start feeling better about yourself. And so it's really like understanding like what are these limiting beliefs, these thoughts that are going on that can deter us, that can bring us into negative spirals, and how can we change them? Because your mentality creates your reality. That's psychology 101 mentality. And I'm not a psychologist, but I see being a thought coach as like the first aid or the bridge to maybe if I need to find a psychologist for somebody, almost like seeing their thought patterns and helping them switch it and reverse it and change it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's huge because, I mean, on the athletic field, it's huge in life, but it's huge on the athletic field. The people that are good athletes, they can't think about there's one mistake. I mean, anyone that you see, they've got to go on because if there's more innings to play or more quarters to play, if you dwell on the mistake, then of course that's going to just create more mistakes. Well, it's the same thing in life. When we dwell on what's not happened, of course, we kind of go to that spiral that's there. So that's very interesting. And, it's just reframing it and thinking about it. And so many people don't think about how many thoughts they have that come in a day.
So many. Yeah. And then you tend to, and your mind is always trying, is geared for survival. So it's going to focus on the negative to keep you alive. And whenever you were like, and what I do is like, I breathe, if I notice a negative thought, like, what's that? I take a deep breath and I simply ask myself the question, am I going to survive this? Because that's what your mind is geared. It's a simple question. Yes. Then you'll feel the tension release because like you've released the fear mechanism in your mind that keeps you alive. It's the old like biology of it. Yeah. When you let that go, now you can start to think more freely because you're not focused on trying to like find the bear in the woods, for example, that's trying to, whatever that bear in the woods is.
Right. Well, let's end it on this note because we've talked about thoughts is talk about, the definition of happiness and how people we've talked about some strategies already that you can change it. But for you, when you think about definition of happiness, how do we put ourselves into that mindset or those thoughts that we can be that happy person?
Gratitude, I think it comes down to just being thankful. Thankful for what you have, where you're at right now, like, and believing that where you're at is where you're supposed to be so you can become who you're supposed to become, and being thankful in the moment.
Yeah. And gratitude is the biggest one. You do it every morning, do it every night. You can do it throughout the day. When something good has happened, this is a great interview, folks. Don't you agree? Well, my gratitude is going to be Jason for saying yes to the Chargers to come share some of that information with us. Jason, we've kind of touched on this, but real quick, if you would give them, if you had 1 to 3 suggestions for parents as they're going into ball season now, it doesn't matter what type of sport it is, and they're getting ready to put their child into that, what would you tell them as a parent? Make sure you do these 1 to 3 things.
Ask them why they want to play. Ask them why you want your kid to play. And then find the commonalities with your kid to see where they match up. So you go into the sport and you keep your expectations where they should be. So you and your kid can have a great experience. Because it's important to know why they play, why you want them to play, and then match those up and stick to those and release like your expectations from them.
Excellent advice. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to jump into the recharge round. I ask every guest these same 3 questions. And I think I sent you a book and one of the bracelets when we met. And my motto is charge. And that's my mantra, create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think's led to success in your life, Jason?
being authentic. I'm just me. Like, I learn from people. I have mentors, but I find how it works for myself, and I don't try to be somebody else. I mean, as best as I can. I'll have moments, obviously, like you want to be, like they always say, like you're going to be like the 5 people you hang around the most. But I just try to be Jason. I don't try to be anybody else.
Excellent. I have a saying called, it's simple positive action. It's a spa. And of course, when we go to a spa, what does it do? It relaxes us. It allows us to get in that mode. What simple positive action do you take each day to kind of move forward towards your goals?
I wake up and I meditate right off the bat. And what I mean by meditate, I get my mind. And meditation is like just simply being mindful and aware of your thoughts. And then it's also like seeing yourself stay calm in any situation throughout the day. Positive, negative things that might come up, especially if you have young kids. They might cry or they might, challenge you in certain ways. I'm a teacher, right? So I know things aren't always going to be perfect, but I visualize myself staying calm in every situation. So when that situation does come up, I feel like I've been there before. So meditation is a big thing for me, and prayer, obviously, too. But I think combining those two with journaling is a great way to, I think, have a great day every day.
Yeah, excellent. Share a big life lesson, and what did you learn from it?
That right now is like being happy in the now, but being excited for your future. Like I think so many times we're like hoping for what's next to get here, that we miss out on the things that are going on right in front of us. So I think it's a balance of being joyful, being excited for what's right now, but also having a vision to grow and expand in your future, and balancing those two.
That's an excellent one. And really realizing that be in the now, be that present. I struggle with that one. I'll be the first one, but I'm excited to be here today and sharing this with the Chargers, because I know they're getting some value out of what we're sharing. And I just truly appreciate you saying yes, Jason. Share with them again, because you had an Amazon best-selling book, if they want to check that out, and give them the title and everything. And then also with the 4D athletes, give them the website and any information if they want to contact you.
Sure. Yeah. It's my book is called Shattered by Suicide, Renewed by Resilience, how to move forward after being left behind. And then our website is the number 4, the letter D, like 4-dimensional, 4dathletes.com. There we have a downloadable where you talk about the Mamba mentality. And we also have demo links for our parents course, our athletes course, and our coaches course that we can show people as well, so they can get a good idea of what we are doing and what we're offering.
Okay. And we'll have that all in show notes too, because we know a lot of our podcasters are either exercising or maybe cutting the lawn. They're being active. Maybe they're running outside right now and saying, man, I wish I had that. Well, just go to chargepodcast.com. My son, Chris, does a great job with show notes, and he'll have all those links for you to be able to easily get to. But do go out. If you've got a son or daughter that's playing sports, go out and check those links, check 4D athletes out. I think you'll see some valuable information on their website and kind of really get a feel for what they're doing in the sport. And then if you know some others, it might be something that you share, because maybe you don't have a son or daughter that's doing it. Go ahead and share that website, because the key is even getting to the coaches. And that's one thing I love about you're doing. You're trying to get to the team level to really get coaches to understand, let's bring this in to the team level, and it makes a real difference there. So some great information to share with you. And that's the reason I wanted to have, I knew Jason would share great value bombs with us, but I wanted to have him on because of the other things that it can do. And since we're kind of in that sports season, of course, we're in it all the time, but we're starting up in that baseball, softball, kind of that summer season, a great time to take a look at it. Jason, I can't thank you enough for being on the Charge podcast. We truly enjoyed having you. Is there anything you'd like to leave with the audience? One last bit of advice?
Well, Gary, thank you, first of all, for having me. And I think it's life is simply about just giving your best effort every day and just trying to get 1% better. And just get a little bit better today than what you were yesterday. And only compare you to you. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just compare yourself who you were yesterday. And did I get better? And if you did, then you're going to have a successful life.
Chargers, I think Jason gave us our challenge there that I want you to take. How can we get 1% better today? How can we just get 1% better today in our relationships, in our influence with the people that we influence, in our workplace? So yeah, we talked about sports here, But sports, this all gets related right back into the workplace. What are you doing? If you're a leader, are you leading your team? Are you having those positive thoughts? Or do you have a negative thought by the team member? Maybe you need to call them in and have that conversation so you get on the same page. There's so many life lessons that we share today. So Chargers, I hope you take that and hope you improve that 1%. And if you've got any comments, please like and share this podcast and let others know about it. We truly would appreciate that. And then come back next week for another great guest. Chargers, we'll see you back here next week. Make it a great day.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.